Have you ever heard of the lost Mario game, Super Donkey? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But I've done my best to compile the most complete amount of content you'll find on YouTube about Super Donkey. You'll learn about lost music, unused sprites, a fifth unreachable level, and more on this Game Facts Special. The Super Donkey prototypes were found in the source code for Yoshi's Island, released during the infamous Nintendo Gigaleak. By all appearances, this game is a lost Donkey Kong sequel where you play as Mario for the Super NES. I might even go so far as to speculate that the full game's name would have been Super Donkey Kong. The prototypes were worked on at Nintendo EAD between the years of 1990 and 1991, perhaps into early 1992 as well. The source code for Yoshi's Island was also found. It contains the names of all the programmers that worked on the game. It's likely many of these programmers also worked on Super Donkey. It also mentions the start and finishing dates of the source code development for Yoshi's Island, February 1st, 1992 to June 29th, 1995. Perhaps Yoshi's Island immediately succeeded the development of Super Donkey. The two builds of the game that were found were labeled super_donkey_1.bin and super_donkey_2.bin. We'll be featuring footage from both these builds throughout the video. By now you may have also noticed Mario's not the character you're playing as in the video, but Mario's appearance will be explained further in this video. The prototypes found consisted of several levels and a boss. The first prototype contains a jungle level, which you travel between the foreground and background and around the stage using these tree trunk doors, and a level with runes and large saws. The second prototype contains a second jungle level with a more complete background. This level is also full of small monkeys and enemies. The enemies cannot hurt you, but they can make you dizzy. You can take out the enemies by jumping on them or shooting them with this pot, but they will respawn, and in the case of jumping, they only get dizzy. The next level is a short one, consisting of bushes, grass, and log cabins. I figured out you can trigger different pallets by going down these chimneys the same way you go down pipes in Mario games. Twitter user Pancake001 said they were able to trigger a layer 2 background that shows the interior graphics of the house in addition to the palette change. I could not trigger this myself, however. Another level that at first appears to be a jungle, but it contains windows, which suggests some kind of greenhouse. There's also an outdoor section where you can see the moon and the stars. Finally, there's a level with these big springy coils, followed by a boss, which is a large bird. You can jump on the bird until it shrinks down to a small bird. Then it flies away. That's the end of the prototype. YouTuber MD Travis was able to find an inaccessible level within the prototypes. The level can only be accessed by editing the cartridge's memory. It's very unfinished and is missing the majority of its graphics. The playable character has quite a few moves. The player can pick up pots and shoot arrows, fly after charging up the meter that's on screen, ground pound like Yoshi and Mario from the 3D games, hang from branches and climb small trees, and pick up some enemies, monkeys, and items. The playable character in Super Donkey looks a lot like an earlier character from a game called Sky Skipper, which was released by Nintendo into the arcades in 1981, the same month as Donkey Kong. Its wider release was cancelled due to poor feedback. We will discuss this arcade game further in a future video. It's a pretty interesting story too, but for our purposes here, the pilot looks an awful lot like our hero, and the arcade game features apes that look a lot like Donkey Kong. Some, in online discourse, suggest that the character looks like Stanley from Donkey Kong 3. I think he looks more like the character from Sky Skipper, but perhaps it was an amalgamation of both characters. As well, the character does resemble Sky Skipper more. There is the greenhouse level I mentioned before to consider. Donkey Kong 3, if you didn't know, takes place in Stanley's greenhouse. While not seen in the playable sections of the prototype, Donkey Kong sprites were found within the prototype ROMs. This means that the game almost assuredly was intended to be a sequel to Donkey Kong. As mentioned, it's fairly certain this game was a prototype for Yoshi's Island. In interviews, Yoshi's Island staff mentioned that the first 2 years of development were largely experimental. They didn't have the fully formed idea of Yoshi's Island until probably around 1992, which lines up with it replacing Super Donkey, as most of the leaked graphics are dated between 1990 and 1991 for Super Donkey. Yoshi's Island is known to have a 4-year development cycle, thanks to comments from Mr. Miyamoto and the source code we saw before. So it seems likely the game developed as Super Donkey for 2 years and then became Yoshi's Island and developed for another 2 years. Originally, I thought perhaps Super Donkey changed to Yoshi's Island because Rare wanted to use DK for Donkey Kong Country. Upon digging, however, it seems since Super Donkey stopped development in 1992 and DKC didn't get started till late 1993, it's unlikely there was any overlap between the two. Okay, so Donkey Kong and Yoshi's Island aside, where's the Mario in all this? In addition to the playable character in the ROM, matching art for Mario was also found. Most of the art was dated between 1990 and 1991. Twitter user LJ Star showcase these Mario sprites back in the prototypes. What you're seeing now is the result. At some point, the game probably looked like this with Mario. It's unclear if the playable character in the ROM was intended to replace Mario or not. Perhaps both would have been playable. Their art assets appear to be worked on around the same time, which implies that maybe both would have been playable. Some of the art for the side-scrolling Link I showcased in the Zelda Gigaleak episode was also found alongside the art for Super Donkey. I do not believe the art for Link was intended for Super Donkey. It doesn't quite match up with the style of the other sprites. Alongside the DK, Mario, and Link sprites, there were several monkeys, apes, and enemies found. Here's the Koopa Troopa. Here's some various items and character art found. This monkey is actually a leftover from Yoshi's Island. There was some unused Mozart music found within the prototype's data. Take a listen. That's all the information I could find on Super Donkey for this video. Please comment below if you have newer findings. Thanks to the CuttingRoomFloor.net for documenting much of Super Donkey's content. We're trying to reach 100,000 subscribers. You can help by subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and liking the video. In return, we promise to make more videos just like this. Join the Bound to Game Dev Discord. There we talk about video games, Game Fact Special, and my 2 games, Sonic Time Twisted and No More Robots. I've also started a Patreon. Right now, it mostly contains development information about No More Robots, but I'll be adding exclusive episodes in the future. Currently, you can see an upcoming list of episodes on Patreon too. Thanks for watching. This has been a Game Fact Special.